Hello, everyone. My name is Seevani, and today I'm going to do an interview, like a small podcast interview with, we have Sosanna here. So this interview is being organized by the UCD Mechanical Engineering EDI committee. This is one of the first interviews, and today we have Sosanna here. Sosanna is an alumni of UCD. She did her bachelor's in mechanical engineering from UCD in 2009. And now she's working as a lead brake duct engineer in F1 Aston Martin team. Welcome, Shoshana. Thank you for joining us. Could you share a little bit about your journey? How did you end up being in F1 Aston Martin team, and did you have any role model like when you entered this field?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me to start off with. So how did my journey? So I did my master's in England in motorsport engineering in Cranfield University, and was lucky enough straight out of there to get a job at what was then Team Lotus F1 as a junior composite design engineer. And then I spent 2 years there and moved to my current team, Aston Martin F1, in 2014. So I've been there for the past 10 years, which is scary, long time. And as for role models, I would say that I didn't have any female role models from an engineering point of view, but I would say my biggest role models are my big sister. She's a lawyer for a top law firm in London. So she's worked hard and got to where she was, and that was my role model when I was younger. She's 4 years older than me, so
lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, and how did you get into Formula One? Like, why did you choose this Formula One as a race?
Yeah, I don't know where my obsession with Formula One started, but was from when I was a kid. None of my family are into motorsport, none of them are into Formula One, so I don't know where it started. What I do know is when I was 11 years old, I wrote to all the F1 teams asking them for a job. And one of them very kindly wrote back. It was like a 3-page letter. Like, if you want to be an engineer, do this. If you want to be an aerodynamicist, do this. And I almost followed that letter, and that's how I ended up in F1. If I hadn't got that letter, I don't know if I would be in Formula One today.
And did I hear it correct? At the age of 11, you said?
11, yeah. So yeah, I was very young when I knew I wanted to be an engineer.
That's really great if you know what you want to do and then you end up doing that. So
Yeah,
that would be really satisfying. Do you
yeah,
say?
yeah. I find it difficult to relate to people who didn't know what they wanted to do.
Sure.
And it must be very hard to not know what you didn't want to do. But I was focused and I knew what I had to do and what I wanted to do to get there. And thankfully, it worked.
That's really great. So one I think you have been asked many times this, and you have already faced this. As in the automotive motorsport industry, being a female would be a challenge in itself. So what type of challenges have you faced as a woman in a male-dominated industry?
Yeah, motorsports and F1 especially is very male oriented. For most of my career, I was the only woman in the design team. And actually, my design team itself, no problems, no issues. Everyone was great with me. But I think in the wider context, there's always that underlying, well, I call it imposter syndrome. I always feel like I'm not good enough. And the environment, I think we were made to feel like that, or I was made to feel like that. And I think to get around that, I just had to work harder and prove to the male colleagues who didn't respect me as such. But I think that was more for me than for them.
Yeah. In terms of you getting a feel of being different or being treated differently, what do you think is the main challenge there? Is it the body language of your co-workers? What kind of things that you think?
Yeah, I think body language is a big thing. So in meetings, we'll have big technical meetings with a lot of people in it, and I will say something or suggest something, and kind of no one says it. And then 2 minutes later, a male colleague will say it in a slightly different way, and everyone will be like, "Oh, that's a great idea. That's a bit." And I'm there, like, I literally suggested that 2 minutes ago.
Okay.
So that is, I think that's me. I should be more confident.
Sure.
But I think naturally, as women, we are quieter. We let the men speak.
Yeah.
It's just our nature is to read the room. Yeah. Better and sit back and listen rather than
be very vocal about it and unconfident about it. So
I think over the years I've become more confident to stay in my place when I think it's warranted.
Yeah, so that would go up to my follow-up question, is in like, how have you have prepared yourself in the last decade, and how have you evolved as a person?
Yeah, I think it's when I'm in that situation where I know there's going to be multiple people in the room, I've prepared before I go in, so I know my facts. I know what I'm saying is correct. You know, I'll have proof. I'll have documentation to show what I'm saying. I think just being more prepared, because maybe that's what it is, to show colleagues that you do know it, and maybe with time they will get better, and hopefully for future girls coming forward it'll be easier for them. They won't have to deal with the same initial stigma, say, that I had. But I hope that's how it is, and I think it is getting easier for the young women coming through now. I think they are having an easier time.
Would you think that that evolution of, so to speak, a gender biasness, like some sort of unconscious bias in the colleague, could be through their fault or no fault of their own, but the unconscious bias that they have for female workers, do you think it has changed over years?
I think it's changing slowly as the more females are in the office and show what we can do. But like it is unconscious. Like it's even in engineering lectures in university, there was only 5 of us out of 50 females. So it's their whole education and career will have been not very many women.
Sure. Yeah.
So if it's not a forgiveness, or it's not a acceptance of what they are like. But I think that unconscious bias is changing, and it is improving, and I hope encourage more young women to do engineering.
Yeah, I think videos like this is to inspire young women to be in this field, so that they can have a role model like you, and they can listen from you, and then get a realistic perspective of what it is, and then how do they need to like prepare themselves. Like then following from your experience, in just not in terms of females but in general diversity in teams, how do you think it has contributed to problem solving abilities or the teamwork in manufacturing or engineering?
Yeah, I think the more people from different backgrounds, different levels of disability, and any neurodiverse people, that when you have different ideas, it all helps, especially in an engineering department where innovation is the key. We're trying to come up with new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things to ultimately make the car faster. So if we can bring more people in, more diverse people that have different ideas, like, because F1 has been traditionally very white male, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But having to get that extra edge, maybe you need a new idea.
Yeah.
I think even as being a woman, as an engineer, you see a lot more, you see the bigger picture more than maybe my male colleagues would.
In terms of just bringing back to a bit to technical side of what you do, you mentioned that you are a lead brake duct engineer, so you work with both rear and front brake ducts.
So I do both front and rear brake ducts, which is a lot of work.
So could you, I think before you had mentioned that you were working only for the rear brake ducts and now you're working for both. Could you briefly explain what's the difference between the front and the rear brake ducts?
Yeah, so the front and rear, they do different things. Fronts are on the front of the car, so they have to deal with the steering. So they have to deal with turning and that kind of, so they have more structure that way. And then the rear is where all the power goes through, so the drive shaft goes through the rear. So they're very different beasts, even though they sound like they do the same thing. So I've ended up doing both of them. Initially, I was only doing rear brake ducts. And then one year we had an issue with the front brake ducts, and I kind of turned around and said, I don't want that to happen for the year. So can I do both of them? I volunteered to do both of them. It's supposed to be temporary, but I'm still doing both of them 2 years later. And I think they've been pretty good so far this year, not very many issues. So I think
in terms of technical knowledge, like I think you've mentioned that you need to know like softwares like Katia. But then when you transferred your skills from rear to the front brake duct, what extra challenges did you have to, what new things did you have to learn for the?
I've said doing fronts to rears from a design point of view, they have different requirements, but ultimately they're the same carbon parts that see high temperature and need to withstand curving and use. So there wasn't too much to learn. It was more just the workload.
Okay.
There's a lot of workload in one brake duct, never mind two.
Are you the only person dealing with it on an overall like a lead, or do you have like a small team who works together?
Right now, it's only me doing brake ducts. I have occasionally another colleague who helps me doing tooling and laminates and things, but the ultimate control of front and rear brake ducts is mine.
Signing off things and designing things.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it must be daunting to have so many responsibilities shouldered on one person. So how do you deal with it? Like, and how have you evolved that, sense of having responsibility?
Yeah.
And then if something breaks, you have a sense of responsibility too. So how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's something that I've had to learn to deal with over the years. And I've gotten much better at it. So maybe a few years ago, I would have gotten very stressed or very emotional, as people do. So I've kind of now learned to control that, but I don't think being emotional is a bad thing. I actually think it helps me work sometimes. If you do care about it, you ultimately produce a better part. But I think just with experience and doing it repetitive, I've been doing it brake ducts for almost 10 years now. So you learn to know when to get stressed about it and when not to get stressed about it and when it's useful. And I think knowing what people in the team can help you as well, and help you deal with that stress. So if someone is good at one thing, you will get them to help you with that section, so they can take some of the stress off. And I think because Formula One now is a constant game, so we're constantly doing updates, the stress never ends. So you have to learn to deal with it, because otherwise you just burn out. And I have seen people burn out before in F1, and it's not pretty, but I think you just have to. It takes a certain kind of person to deal with stress.
Yeah, sure. What advice would you give to young women and others, who are relatively more minor coming into F1 motorsports? What advice would you give them to to aspire and to pursue a career in motorsports? What do they need to do?
What I would say is don't give up. Keep trying. Everyone gets knockbacks quite frequently, and I think as women, if you get knocked back, you'd be like, no, that's it. Whereas I think it's the reverse is for a male. If they got the knockback, they'll keep trying. So I think it's important for the women just to keep trying, and also do it because you want to do it. As I say, to me, my job is a vocation. So you have to want to do it, to put in the work. Otherwise, you won't enjoy it.
In your opinion, what are the key areas in motorsports which would require some improvement in like from an engineering perspective? Do you have like some hunch over certain things that need to be, like brake ducts are a big part of it, I'm sure, but then what are the other things that you see on a racetrack that things go bad, and then even though you know that it will take some time, but that these parts need a lot of improvement?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different areas of F1. The big push is to make things lighter. So the lighter we can make them, the more performance we can get from the car, so we can move fast. So right now our big push is lightweight materials, lightweight cores, lightweight like printed parts, taking mass out where we can. I think that is the biggest challenge now, and also cost cap. Cost cap is a big thing in F1, and everything we do now is costed, is all processed, and that is a very new thing for a lot of people in F1, and so a lot to deal with when you're not used to it.
So I think in that regard, carbon fiber and the field that you work in would be very niche, coming to the fact that it's very lightweight material.
Yeah, it's the perfect material for Formula One, because you can do very complex shapes on it. You can use it in high temperature situations, or for front wings when you need the stiffness, or the chassis where you need the strength. It's a wonder material for Formula One, but it's very specific. It is used on airplanes and fighter jets and weapons and that kind of thing, but it's a wonder material.
No, it's a blessing for Formula One.
It works very well. Makes our life easier in some ways.
Yeah, definitely. Coming back a little bit to your, a typical work day.
Yeah.
So, I know it's, especially you as a design engineer who goes to tracks and everything, it would be very demanding. So how do you see your work progressing towards the day? Do you have any work-life balance, or is it like during some periods it's cramped up and then other periods it's relatively better?
It used to be you would have waves of, you'd be really, really busy and then quiet and really, really busy. But now the way F1 has gone, you're busy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So what I try to do is I try to get in early in the morning. I get in probably 7:30,
Mm-hmm.
Get some work done before everyone else arrives, because you can just get it done, but also not stay too late. That is get my evening, so I can go home and relax and de-stress from work. My punch bag in my gym that I punch it'll be even if I get stressed after work, which really helps. I try to maybe even go for a walk or go for a run after work.
How often do you, like, what's the usual time of getting off the work? Like, at least from the work job place.
Leave the factory. Yeah, I try to leave the factory by 7:30 every day.
Okay, and then you do carry over some work.
Sometimes, yeah. I try not to, but
that's part of life.
It's also part of the job to be contactable if there's an issue.
Sure.
But it's never.
Yeah, I think which brings back and ties up to your point that don't give up.
Yeah.
Because it is demanding. There's no denying it.
Yeah.
And being a female, especially, you would feel a bit more isolated. So don't give up.
Don't give up. Just keep trying. Yeah.
Keep trying. Yeah.
And you have to want to do it, because if you want to work in F1, it's because you're a racer, because you like racing cars, you like winning, and that's ultimately why you do it, because to get a winning car and something you design wins the race. It's very satisfying.
In terms of prospects in industry other than F1, let's, for example, as a brake duct designer or a person who is composite designer, that's an overall role. Which all industries do you think are like evolving or have like nicheness now?
Yeah, I think from a composite point of view, it's probably the aerospace or even renewable energy. So a lot of like wind turbines and things can use carbon fiber better. But to be honest, I haven't really explored it that much.
But
I'm not planning on moving yet. But
but I think the general, would you say that the bachelor's in mechanical engineering that you did does put you in a wider perspective?
It's very good. I always go to school sometimes to speak to kids, and I always say mechanical engineering is the best grounding of any engineering degree. I'm a little bit biased as a mechanical engineer, but it opens up so many doors to so many other. It's not, you don't just have to be a mechanical engineer. It gives you so many more opportunities in other industries, not just mechanical engineering.
And do you think that your master's in Cranfield added up to your, like, not just to your CV but to your experience? Do you think a master's is necessary for F1?
I don't think it's necessary these days, but I think the big thing for me for my master's was it meant I left Ireland. I moved out of Ireland, moved to England, took that big step, and I didn't unpack my car for weeks, because I was like, I'm moving back to Ireland, I'm not staying in England, I don't want to do this. But I stayed. I think if I hadn't stayed, I wouldn't be in F1. So I think the master's was useful, but I don't think it's necessary. I think these days a lot of the teams have the graduate programs and student placements, which they didn't have in my day. So I think they help more now than doing a motorsports masters.
Yeah, okay.
That makes
thank you for giving us some very nice, interesting answers. And I also wanted to ask you about, being, again, female and then slightly minority in your industry. Do you have any support groups, and do you get redirected to mentorships when you're low, or do you have some internal, even some girls' night out, if you have any? Or what kind of?
We do now in Aston Martin. We have a women's impact network, and we're slowly set up a few months ago. We all get together once a month and have a chat about our issues, and we pick a theme usually every month, and someone hosts, and we talk about issues that in the workplace that, and I think that has been very useful. It's almost to see how many females work in the team as well, because I'm in my office all the time, and you see there's a lot more than in other departments than I thought there was, and it's nice to see a good group and mix of people. And then we also have there's the Women's Engineering Society that are linked to Aston Martin, and they run events throughout the year, and I haven't used them, but I believe they do have like mentorship and support networks that.
And I think maybe you would agree that these focus groups where you see other female colleagues are having similar kind of issues, you would also feel a bit heard, a bit.
And then it isn't just you, it isn't just a you issue, it's not a problem, but what it is, if everyone is having the same issues, it's like, okay, you feel a bit more justified in your
emotionally justified,
and you can say it to your male colleagues if everyone is feeling the same way.
Did you find any sort of help from like specific advice from these focus groups where you confide in a friend who happens to be a colleague in another department?
There are women in other departments that I do confide in, especially being on the race team as well. There's a lot of more misogyny on the race team than there is in the factory.
Of course.
And I've learned to deal with it. Not that I don't think I should have learned to deal with it. It shouldn't have been an issue in the first place. But I feel like I have someone now that I can talk to in work, which I didn't have before. And I think this network opens up that kind of opportunity to, you see different people that maybe I can talk to her about it, and maybe
and that helps definitely.
And see if they've had the same issues, and how to deal with it, come up with a plan, because all very well talking about it, we need to fix it. That's the ultimate
main challenge. Okay, so I think that's what we are also intending to do, even with this the UCD university principles of EDI, having more support groups, having more focus, so that people feel more heard, and then they can have some say and build some confidence. And that's really nice. Just to get some percentages from you, let's say in your team or in your design department in general, what's the percentage of female engineers?
For my immediate design department, there's 23 people and there's 3 females.
Okay.
So that's fairly good in an F1. So in the rest, in the bigger design stage, there's probably 60 people and 4 females.
Okay.
That's including the 3 that are in my department. So in the wider design group.
Okay. Would you say that there is any specific part of F1 Aston Martin team or F1 sports team in general where women are more in number relative to
commercial department?
Yeah.
Okay. There's lots of, and they work hard. They do really good job bringing in all the money. So they're very good at their job. There's a lot more. It's nice to see. There's also now in our new factory, they are more visible. So before they were in a different building, so you never saw them. So it's nice having more females just
around. Just
the visual, I think, helps.
Okay. Thank you for your time. And I think my final question would be, if you could name 2 things, 2 challenges or 2 fields where you have had a lot of problems in the last decade in terms of being a female and being a minority, which have changed now. That's the first part of the question. And the second part is, what are the 2 things that you think have to be addressed now?
Oh, okay. I think probably the biggest thing for me is dealing with my emotions.
Okay.
I got very emotional when I was a junior engineer, with stress, and just I would openly cry in the office occasionally, which freaks out everybody else. But it was something you got to do. Well, I think I've learned to deal with that and not use it to an advantage, but use my emotions to help me rather than let it hold me back. Help it. But I do think motorsport needs to change to let people be more themselves and not fit into this little box that everyone should be, because we are all different, we all work different ways, and motorsport is very set in its ways in terms of you have to work 9 to 5, you have to do this, you have to do that, Whereas I think actually COVID gave us more flexibility.
Yeah,
People
true.
working from home, whereas we can work from home occasionally, but it's not you need to be in the office.
Sure.
Whereas I think maybe something for especially people with kids.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do my job if I had kids.
Mm.
But if motorsport became more flexible, more open to working from home, remote working, or even just part-time working, I think it would open up doors to a lot more people.
A lot more people, yeah.
A lot more diverse people, ultimately a better car.
Yeah. Well, keeping the overall aim of F1 team to have a better car performance.
Yeah.
If certain things could be changed in.
Yeah.
Like,
I think even cost cap, part-time working seems like an obvious thing to do. So
yeah, and I think you have mentioned it quite a few times, like dealing with your own emotional intelligence, and then not would you say that not like running away from it, rather addressing it face to face, having a good cry. Punching bag is a very good idea.
Yeah.
So having those kind of places to vent out and then focus back.
Yeah.
For
being able to get back into that mindset. So the emotion, let it out, and then get back to it.
That's really wonderful. So I think I hope to the audience, Sosanna's words from a person who is experienced for the last 10 years, those words ring some bells in your minds, and you would find it better, or rather you would find that you are not alone feeling the emotional stress like everyone. So I hope that it helps people. And Sosanna, thank you so much. It's really interesting and exciting to see people like you fighting on for the last so many years and getting to where you are, and also speaking to a university where young women, female engineers are there, and generally everyone in general. And thank you so much for doing this interview.
Thank you for having me.